Hi everyone and welcome to the Warhammer podcast. We're your hosts, Jack
and Dan.
And today we're going to be looking at what to expect from a tournament.
Yeah, tournaments can seem a bit daunting, but in reality they're often a lot of fun. I mean, they're not everybody's cup of tea, but we would recommend that you at least try them and see if you like them, because we certainly do.
Yeah, well that's it. I think there's just so many more like positives and like benefits you can get from going to a tournament. But I guess it's like that mentality of like it's maybe the stigma around it maybe could be as well.
There's still a stigma. It's getting a lot better, but there's still people that expect it's going to be an unpleasant experience where they get smashed all over. And that can, the reason that there is that stigma is it can happen, but that's very rare.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest on our experiences maybe later on. Just about like how we've experienced it and such. So, yeah, good. Well, do you want to walk through what we're going to talk about?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about what tournaments we go to, how to find the right tournament, what happens at a tournament, what you should do before attending a tournament, and tips for attending a tournament. How to deal with losses, because you might get spanked at your first tournament. So
you will get spanked. Let's be clear.
And then also, if you decide that this is for you and you like that competitive scene, how to get better at it and progress.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's loads of good things to talk about it.
Yeah,
I'm hoping this video is not going to be too long because I've got loads to talk about. Added loads of bits and bobs. But should we just get cracking?
Yeah, jump in. Yeah, tell us what tournaments that you go to.
Yeah, so we've been to a couple around, but I guess the main one that I'll let you talk about. But one of the ones that I've been going to recently is I think they keep changing the name of what it is. It was called the Reckoning, the most recent one I went to, but they're hosted by Olympic Miniatures.
Yes.
Honestly, this tournament was super chill. I really enjoyed it. The main reason why I really enjoyed it was because it was just the chill atmosphere and like the close-knit kind of people that were there. Everyone seemed to kind of like, I was new to it and I've never met anyone from there, but I bumped into some friends, of course, that were there, but the other people that I hadn't met, again, were just super nice. I looked on the description and I was pleasantly surprised and pleasantly happy to see that in the description it said that you don't need to have your miniatures painted.
All right.
So it meant that I had a friend from work who was into Warhammer and he was going to it because he didn't have his Tyranids fully painted.
Right.
So he hadn't been to any tournaments before. So he was really happy to kind of be able to see that, to be like, all right, it's going to be more of a chill vibe.
Yeah.
You don't need to have, there's no like strict rules around your models and such. So that to me was very nice to see.
Yeah, it makes it a bit more welcoming. And I mean, as much as we talk about, immersion in games and stuff like that, I don't actually mind too much for competitive play, for tournaments, because it's a slightly different mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely is.
I think the rules about painted exist at the bigger tournaments to stop meta chasing so much, so that somebody can't just 3D print the latest hotness.
Go to the Warhammer shop the night before and be like, oh, what's hot, what's not. Yeah. let me get what's good.
But as long as people are passing the vibe check at smaller events like that, then why not? Absolutely. It just makes it a bit more accessible. Yeah.
Another one for me is the Wildlings League as well. I know I've signed up for that, so that's happening quite soon.
Yeah, this is the Wildlings League. Wildlings is our local club.
Yeah.
And they're actually running two leagues. One is a narrative league, which we'll come on to later, which is a really interesting idea. And the other one, obviously, is a competitive 40k league. Yeah.
So looking forward to that. Again, it makes me have regular games. Sometimes getting a game organised between friends can take a little bit of time, just with conflicts of timing and such. So having this kind of preset is going to be really nice for me to make sure I get like a consistent game setting.
Yeah, it kind of forces you to play every couple of weeks. And I played in the first iteration of this and played lots of different people across variety of skill sets and experience, up to some very, very good competitive players in there. So you can it was a really nice experience. But again, the club itself, and I keep saying this, but it's a very, very nice club, so you don't tend to get people there who are unpleasant to play against.
Absolutely.
Every game is a fun game.
Yeah, definitely. And you've got one as well?
Yes, I mean I'm coming to the next one, hosted by Olympic Events, which I'm actually going to run my unpainted Tyranids. Funny enough, I wasn't the friend he was talking about before. It was his
friend.
I'm just his Warhammer wife.
That's it. You're a buff friend.
But I think that would be a really nice opportunity to try them out.
Super nice.
But we're also another event. I mean, we both went to Warhammer Fest. That was the first GT we attended.
Yeah.
But another one that's close to both our hearts is Northeast Open, isn't it?
Yes, we've been to a lot of those tournaments.
Yeah. I think this year will be the third one I've been to on the bounce. and that is the biggest. It's the only GT actually in the northeast at the moment, in the northeast of England where we live. But it's always a fun. That one has a slightly different vibe to what I would consider a normal GT.
Yeah.
In that it just attracts a nice crowd again. Don't get me wrong, there were people there who are proper players,
really
and
good,
out to
from
win
teams
it.
and stuff,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course.
we always get lads come down from Team Scotland and so forth, which
Yeah.
is nice to see. There's always a couple from like Mind Goblins, who shout out to the Mind Goblins, one of the top teams in the UK at the moment. So that, the standard is quite high there, but there is also a load of us that just go for the crack, really, isn't it? It's a social occasion as much as it's obviously you want to try and roll your dice and win your games, but it's not got the same edge to it that some tournaments do.
There's loads of benefits. We'll go into some of the benefits and tips later on and whatnot, because I want to get them into it now. But yeah, there's just having these. Don't get feared from us saying, oh, the top people are coming to these kind of tournaments. You got so many benefits to these guys coming all the way up to learning from them, getting tips from them and
massively.
Such. So it's really good, really useful.
But before you get into that, we need to find out how to actually
find a tournament, right?
Because we get asked about this a lot, like how do I find events?
Yeah. And sometimes obviously, depending on the area and such, it can be a little bit harder to maybe find them. But for us, for me at least anyways, it's either Facebook, looking on little events on Facebook. Pretty much every event I've been to has it on Facebook.
Yeah, and Facebook's a funny one because the algorithm, obviously, like if you like lots of Warhammer stuff on Facebook, it'll start showing them to you anyway.
Yeah.
But if you shy away from showing your Warhammer side on your Facebook profile, then it won't.
Taylor Swift stuff.
But you can actually, you can search for them.
It for me, I found it relatively easy to find them.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what it is, but navigating the event when I'm on there, this isn't their fault. This isn't like anything. It's just me. I can't use it, but finding it, I can find them. But actually getting the detail from it can be hard for me.
Yeah.
That's just me being.
But there is also a very good app which you've been using to help, and that can also help you find events, can't it?
Yeah, BCP. So literally BCP on the Play Store.
Yes. It's also, if you can't, it's also called, the BCP stands for Best Coast Pairings.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, that app is probably one of the, probably for me at least anyways, the best way of finding these tournaments.
It's you can pay for the app, but there is a free version which everybody can use.
I just use the free one.
Yeah.
I've not really
I haven't paid for it.
needed.
No, we don't go to enough events yet.
Well, that's it. I think the reason why you'd buy it for, there will be good benefits from it, but I think it's just to track your scores or see past events longer than 3 days, I think it is. But the free version is good enough. It helps you find all sorts of tournaments, doubles, singles, teams.
Yeah.
And then you can search via area as well. So obviously you can increase like the number of miles that you're looking for. So it's really useful to find.
Yeah, if you're looking to find hot single events in your area, then this is the best, or doubles events in your area.
There we go. Yeah, whatever you're into, whatever you like. But yeah, honestly, some really good stuff. But you've got a few things as well.
Yeah, I also think if you're lucky enough to have good local clubs and gaming stores nearby, they will very often signpost you to events. So they will share if events are happening on their socials or just word of mouth, etc. But a lot of them, as we've just touched on with, like for the Wild Dingsy, for example, they will host their own events. Local gaming stores are also really good. Independent gaming stores will host their own events. Yeah. And these are often aimed at different skill levels as well. So there will be a beginner's event, for example. Yeah. And then they might be smaller points sizes for your armies, so maybe it's like 1,000 points. Some of them run escalation leagues, so you might start at 250 points even, and then go 500, 1,000, and so on, which is a really nice way to slowly build your confidence and build your army as well. Yeah,
because people think when you go to a tournament, you're just there to play games, but there's actually a few more things to kind of do, like set up terrain. That sideswept me a lot when I first started going to terrain tournaments. I didn't realize the player has to set up the terrain. As like entitled as that sounds, to be like, I'm here to play, and I'm having to set up my maps. Where's Ricky? I want Ricky to set up my maps for me. But yeah, I mean, that's probably something I want to talk about.
Next Northeast Open, Ricky, I want our table set up and a big red bow tied around it.
I want a cup of tea on the side.
Don't talk to me
on
about
top.
Cups of tea on tables at the Northeast Open. That's another video. But I mean, that's you just highlighted something there which people might not know. But run us through what happens at a tournament, because there's good reason for this. Is for a lot of people, us included, going to a big event can feel a bit daunting and can create some anxiousness or anxiety. Or whatever.
I definitely had it. I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely had it when we were going to Warhammer World. Although I was at
Warhammer Fest, yeah.
I was excited because I was going with friends and it was
Yeah.
going to be a little event. But when it actually came to like, we walked up, there was like hundreds of people, and then obviously it all popped off, and then we all dispersed. As soon as we dispersed, I was like,
You're on your own now. Yeah.
"Oh, I'm
yeah.
nervous. Oh, I'm nervous." So what I really want to do is something that helps my nerves at least is just having an understanding at a tournament what happens.
Yeah.
And not a lot of tournaments that I see actually put in their description what to expect.
No.
Which I think would be really good to see, just to help that nervousness kind of dissipate.
Tournaments are not tournaments in this respect, and tournament organisers do a lot of wonderful work, but they are not good at welcoming and making life easier for noobs. It's almost like a rite of passage, like you just have to learn it.
It's just a band-aid thing. And look, I mean, again, as you briefly mentioned, the organisers have so much to do.
Yes.
So I get it. But
dropping something like this in a tournament pack would be amazing, I think.
It absolutely is. So just to run through for anyone out there who might be a little bit nervous around going to a tournament, or just have that, maybe this would help, because it really helped me just understand.
It would have helped me. I would have loved it.
So when you basically decide to go to a tournament, there's a couple of things that happen, but I'll run down the list. So you arrive. As daft as it sounds, you get up to the event, and we always recommend that you get there a little bit earlier, just so you can see yourself around.
Definitely for your first one, get the lay of the land. Yeah.
Definitely lay of the land. When you arrive, obviously everyone just kind of get in there, get a drink. Everyone's kind of floating around, go talk to some people and just kind of relax yourself. Before it starts, the host kind of does a little intro, just kind of give you a little rundown of what might happen during the day. Maybe if they're putting food on, they might let you know what time food's going to be, and then let you know what timings each of the games are going to be. Because if you do a five day,
a 2-day, 5-game,
yeah, it's going to be three games in the first one and 2 games on the second one. So basically the host gives you a little intro. Once you've done the little intro, BCP will appear. Your placings or your table number will appear on BCP.
Yeah, table number and your opponent will appear. Very often they'll do that a week or so before or a few days before the event, so you know who your first opponent's going to be.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but if they don't worry about it. They will appear on the app. So that's probably worth mentioning, because make sure you've got signal. Like some events I've been to, there's the lack signal. Yeah. So just make sure that you've got signal. If you don't have signal, ask someone. Everyone was there to help. Yeah. People will tell you where to go, because they're using the app as well. It takes them 30 seconds to check. So once you've got your table number, go to your table and meet your opponent. Get there promptly for the next step, but it's always good to kind of meet your opponent, shake hands, say hi, ask questions about what kind of army do you have, any gotcha moments. I think that's really, it's just a nice little opening to the game.
Yes. It's difficult sometimes to try and take it all in, but try and listen to what your opponent's saying, because they will tell you about these opportunities which would be a gotcha moment.
Yeah.
A good opponent will also tell you during the game and remind you, like say, "Oh, remember, I can do this. If you do this, I can do that."
Yeah.
But some don't. So try and listen, take it in, and obviously the reverse is true, isn't it? You need to tell your opponent.
Be honest. Yeah. Like for me, I think the first couple of rounds, or the first round at least, if you're telling your opponent or they're telling you what to do, I think after that it is fair game. If you've been told you've not remembered, that's on you. Because like you get told several times, it's not up to them to.
I think I do like the rule of 3. I think 3 is very good sportsmanship. So tell them pre-game, and then tell them a couple of times in the game, and then after that, then it's reasonable enough.
Exactly.
Because weirdly, particularly, I don't know if you're the same, but I tend to learn. I will learn more through making a mistake. So if you told me twice and I forget, and then I get hammered for it, then I won't do it again.
I'll walk away being like, I'm never going to forget that. That's ridiculous.
Because it stings.
It hurts. It really does.
But that's a good point, yes.
Yeah. So the next one, what happens? After you meet your opponent, you get to your table, you have to set up the terrain. Now, this sideswiped me when I first turned up, because I wasn't too sure about like ITC terrain and such.
So different tournaments will use different sets up of different terrain layouts, and there is each of those organizations responsible for that has a pack. So GW has its own pack. Into the ITC, the International Tournament Confederation, or whatever, they have a pack, and the UK has a pack. But I think UK and ITC are similar anyway, aren't they?
Quite similar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
GW is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But these packs will show you exactly what terrain pieces, what size the terrain pieces are,
Yeah.
and exactly the location on the map.
Yes. So these packs will be available before you attend the tournament. The tournament organizer typically tells you what layout you're playing on. So maybe bring that printout, as a little tip, or perhaps
definitely
review it before you go, because I got sideswiped and my opponent done all the heavy lifting for me.
The first,
and I felt bad.
The first time I turned up, I had no idea about any of this, and you just
great. And then obviously after that, as silly as it sounds, play the game, have fun, enjoy it, learn a lot, play the game, and that's obviously the next step.
Good.
Once the game is complete, though, you will need to upload those scores to BCP. Now, only one of the two players need to do it. So as long as you or your opponent has access to BCP, they will upload the scores.
It's a good practice to, if you're doing it, allow your opponent to see you doing it and to double check it before you press it. And if your opponent is doing it, they should do the same to you.
Yeah, I typically, if I'm doing it, I'll type it in and I'll just slide my phone over and be like, check that and press submit.
Yeah.
And then just let them submit it. It's courtesy for me.
Yeah.
It's
good sportsmanship. It's just a nice thing to do.
Exactly. Once that's done, though, once the round is over, typically after game one, it's lunch.
Yeah.
So you start at like 9:30, it goes to about 12:30, and lunch is between like 1 and 2 or something along those lines. Check with the
It'll depend on the schedule,
Yeah. So once lunch is completed, round 2 will then be uploaded. Now, round 2, this again depends on some organizers, but I think round 2 is typically wins versus wins, losses versus losses.
Yes. So what will happen as the tournament progresses is you will get the idea is to try and pair you with people more of your skill level.
Yeah.
Which so obviously that means you have a more enjoyable experience.
Exactly. So once round 2 happens, again, make sure you get to the table prompto, because you need to set up the next layout of the terrain.
Yeah. Don't have driven to McDonald's and be late back or anything like that. It's not a good look.
It's not. And if someone did that to me, I'd probably set up my half of the terrain. Yeah. Be like, oh, screw you, do your half. But no, honestly,
but then you might lose the roll off and end up on the other side of the table. Imagine that. Someone turning up 5 minutes late, still eating their Big Mac. And,
Well, that's a nice model. But get there. Not early, obviously enjoy your lunch,
be prompt,
relax, but be prompt. Set up the terrain, because you need to get that going basically.
Good.
But once you've done that, you then just repeat until the next 3 turns. So you'll play the game, upload the scores. Immediately after the second game, the pairings will go up for the third one, which at that point is based on points, if I'm correctly, wins and points.
Again, sometimes I think this is behind the scenes. The organisers are allowed to
change it up,
make some tweaks to this. So it can vary, but there is a set way to do it.
Yeah.
Typically, it's going on wins and then wins and points.
Yeah, something along those lines. And again, it depends on how long the games are going. If you're 5 or 3, whatever.
But as the games progress, if you're a beginner and don't feel downhearted on day 1. If you lose all 3 of your games, on day 2, the likelihood is you're going to be paired with somebody else that's also lost all 3 of their games. So that doesn't automatically mean that you're going to be exactly at the same level, but it gives you the best possible chance of both having a game of a similar skill set and similar experiences, and it should be more fun.
Absolutely. And then after that, basically, once all 3 games are played, or the all 5 games are played, at the end there's typically awards and typically little speeches and such, which are always enjoyable. So stick around for that. I'd always recommend it. Sometimes some people do raffles, so there might be some people going around getting raffle tickets for charity and such, or just a general raffle. Really useful sticking around for that. We've won some really good prizes on the back of that. I've won a box and such for Space Marine, which was great. So that's kind of the rundown of the day. I don't think I've missed anything off.
I think that's fair. I think awards they will take place during the event. Usually the judging for things like best painted is on day 2, and they might. So if you're a really good painter, remember to put your army in for best painted. And also there's often a best sportsmanship award, which is very highly coveted. So make sure it shouldn't be the reason why you're a good sportsman, but it means that even if you don't win all of your games, if you are the best sportsman there, you will come away with that accolade, which is something that's really, really cherished.
It's nice. It was really good. But honestly, I really hope that's helped people out there who's just unsure on what to expect, which kind of draws on that anxiety and such, because
Good.
I definitely had it, but now that I've been there, I enjoy myself more because I know what to expect, and I'm familiar with it, which is really good.
What about before attending a tournament? There's a few prep steps that you can take as well, isn't there?
There's absolutely loads of stuff that you could do. So really, it's up to the person on what you guys maybe lack that you might want to do. So I guess we've just got like a list of stuff that would be useful. Should I start off? Or you want to
Go
start?
for it, man.
Perfect. Use the app. From what I do before you should attend, I always make sure that my app is on the Warhammer app.
You're talking about the Warhammer app, yes, and the Army Builder Battle Forge, I think it's called, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly there, yeah. The reason for is when I'm playing my practice games, they have a little button at the top that has a little skull on, that tells you what weapons your unit has equipped. So some units, like the Warriors, for example, they've got 2 different weapon profiles. The Reaper or the Gauss.
Yeah, the Gauss Flare and Gauss Reaper, yeah.
So if you just preview it, you have both options, and sometimes you might bring in multiple ones of that one. So make sure you set that up on the app, or if you're not using that, bit of pen and paper, just make sure that you know what each of your units do, and it's super clear. It's probably the best thing, because when you're in the game, which we'll probably talk about later, when you're in the game, you're gonna forget so much.
Yeah, in the actual heat of the battle, have as much of that information at your fingertips as you possibly can. Yeah.
What about yourself? Anything from you?
Yeah, I think if it's the first tournament you're going to, I would go and get some practice with an experienced tournament player, because that will help you an awful lot to understand how that game is, how different a competitive game is to a normal game.
Yeah,
and a lot of that is to do with timings and things, but it's also, as we said, about how you talk to your opponent. Intent or intention is a big word in the competitive community.
Yeah.
So learn about how that works in terms of explaining that I'm moving here because we can agree that you can't see that unit and in your turn, etc. So the intent is a really big one. Talk to an experienced player about that.
Yeah.
Try and play into as many different factions as you can, because you will experience. We've talked about this a lot in the past, but most people play with a handful of people, and they therefore only playing into a handful of factions.
Yeah.
And that means you are missing an awful lot of what's going on.
Yeah.
And that if there are no fast melee armies in your little bubble meta, then you will come unstuck the first time you come up against one.
Yeah, it's not jarring, but more like it's like a whiplash kind of thing. Like you're so used to like your bubble meta we've described in the same armies and such, and then when you go against a different army, you're like, I don't know what to do. Like, this is a completely different player style. I mean, Drakari, for example, that was a massive difference.
Huge
from
difference
Necrons.
from Necrons, yeah.
So it's definitely worth playing a variety.
Yeah, try and play a variety. And I think we talked about this already, but learn how to set up the terrain. So the terrain packs, find out which pack the terrain is coming from for the tournament. If it's GW, if it's UKTC, if it's ITC, find out what it is, download that pack, print it off or get it on your phone or whatever, and then go when you are playing games at your club or your store or whatever, learn how to set that terrain up, because it shows you in the tournament pack. And we should have mentioned this earlier, but when you sign up for a tournament, you will get a tournament pack which will say these are the 5 games that you're going to play. This is the map that you're going to play on.
Yep.
These are the mission, the mission deployment and the rules, etc. So you know those, so you can practice those specific games. But the terrain one is really big, because otherwise it takes you a very long time to set up and you don't know what you're doing.
No.
And the last thing I would say is, if you're a slow player, get a chess clock. This has helped me massively in terms of timing my games, trying to play, because a lot of tournaments will have, all tournaments will have a hard stop.
Yeah.
So if some tournaments your game will be 3 hours, some will only be 2.5. And by the time you set up and deploy, that's only 2 hours to play 5 turns. It's 15 minutes each per turn, something like that.
Yeah.
So you need to understand how to play within that time frame. Otherwise, you might only get to turn 2 or 3.
It's worth considering. So when you're building your army, are you going all like like an orc blob or a warrior blob?
You're going 100 termagants.
Try and understand that. Okay, am I an experienced enough player to move that quickly? Move my models in the positions that I want, without taking up too much of my opponent's time alongside my time.
Interestingly, with a chess clock, the way that works, if you're not sure, is you set the time up and divide it in between. So let's say there's 3 hours for a game, right? So you divide that between the players. So Jack, you get 90 minutes, I get 90 minutes.
Exactly.
So during your turn, it's on you, and during
Yeah.
my turn, it's on me.
Yeah.
And some players will even go down to the detail of if you're rolling your saves or
Yeah.
firing Overwatch or whatever, I will click the clock back onto you.
Yeah, which is valid.
You can do it, yeah.
You're taking up time in my.
The idea of that is to stop slow play, because some armies you can run up the board, score points in turns 2 and 3, and then oh no, we've run out of time. You can't catch up.
So don't think competitive players use a time clock because they want to ensure, I don't know, like to apply stress. It's really to make sure the game is still balanced.
Yeah, it's to apply fairness. Yeah,
and obviously if you run out of time on your chess clock, you aren't allowed to technically move or do anything.
Once your time's out, it's out. Yeah.
All the time goes to one. So when it comes to, say it's turn 3 and you run out of time, you don't get your turn 4 and turn 5. Your opponent gets their turn 4 and turn 5.
They've still got time
You
on the
can
clock,
only... technically the rules are you can only rule saves.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
Yeah.
So you just be careful, basically. So just make sure you get prepped for that.
And don't panic about this. Like again, good experienced players will help new and less experienced players through this process. But if you have the opportunity, if you know that you're a slow player, try and address that before you get to the tournament.
And you can address that literally just by changing your list. Play what you're comfortable with.
Yeah,
I've got some tips later that we'll talk about on how to make that better. So stick around for that.
Good.
One other thing I was going to mention was keeping track can be not daunting, but some layer of pressure that I found when I went to tournaments is I don't want to cheat the other player out of points that they could have potentially got.
Mm-hmm.
So making notes on paper, of course, it's a good way of doing it. It's easy, it's open, people can see it. However, people can write down the wrong thing. People can write down something that you can't read. And if you can't read something or if you're unsure on something, your doubt kind of maybe sets in.
Yes.
So I use the Tabletop Battles app.
Yes,
to
it's
track
a great
my
app.
scores.
It's another free app.
Again, no free. I always like free stuff, so I always go for free. So honestly, again, it helps keep track of the game. It caps you from scoring extra points because again, you can only score 40 points or 50 points for secondaries or something
all
like
of
that.
the points are in there, so it allocates the correct points for scoring in there. As long as you tick the right boxes, it will allocate the right points.
So many times where I've been like, oh cool, I've got containment. Oh, I've got containment for 4 points, and then you'll go and use the app and it caps, and you're like, oh great, the app's telling me.
Yeah.
So I think the big one actually is bring it down. You get 2 points or something like that for bringing something down between 12 points or 3 points, but you actually get 4 points because it gives you an extra one.
It's cumulative,
Yeah, so
and you can score. It's not capped either. I don't think. Bring it down. You can score a lot of points.
You score a lot of points. Yeah,
but a good point, a good idea when you're starting out is get your opponent. Your opponent will probably already be using Tabletop Battles or similar app.
Yeah.
Use it yourself as well to teach yourself a game and do it in your practice games. But then if you both, in a tournament, if you both keep the scores, sometimes you will get a discrepancy there. But if you both got it there, you can check back through and work it out.
I was about to say a little tip before we get on to the tip section, which is next, is if you're using the app and your opponent uses the app, don't feel bad if they say, oh, is it okay if I record the scores? You also record the scores.
Yeah.
Because again, it's not a case of you don't trust that person. The tabletop thingies keeps your things. I'll say it's actually a problem in Tabletop Battles app.
Yeah.
It keeps score of your stats throughout. So you can go back and see what you've done wrong. So if you want to reflect on maybe the day and see how well you've done in certain games, you can go in and see where you scored points and where you didn't to see how to maybe plan it better for next time.
It's a good thing to think about. We'll come on to this, but if you when you get home, the week after the tournament, you can go and check that on Tabletop Battles, and if you look through all 5 of your games from all 3 from a one-day tournament and go, I was never able to score containment, or I did really bad on engage on all fronts, then you start to think, right, do I need to change my positioning or change my list to be able to score those points?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really good.
Good.
Well, we've got loads more
taking
tips.
us into the tips. Go for it. Yeah,
absolutely. Do you want to start off or should I go?
No, go for it, man.
Have fun. That is, as daft as it sounds, you're there to play Warhammer. If you go in there to absolutely smash, then maybe you're a bit more experienced. But if you just go in there and you're quite new, or if you're just looking to have a bit of fun, just have fun. It's a dice game.
Going with the right mindset. So I went into the last Northeast Open. I was still suffering a bit from post-viral fatigue, and by game 2, I was dead on my feet, and I had to sit. I came to the table. I was I was tired, and my face was I didn't look like I was happy. I had to sit down. And my opponent just kind of looked at me, was like, oh, and I was like, no, don't, you know, we're going to have a good game.
This is not you.
Yeah,
This is me.
Yeah, we're still going to have a nice game. Don't worry about this. But yeah, but taking a positive mindset in is always a good step.
I completely agree. And I think that you briefly mentioned one there. Sit down as much as you can.
Oh yeah.
Your legs will appreciate you sitting down. Your back will appreciate
100% your back.
You know, the amount of times you're having to lean over to get to your models.
So these are not bespoke gaming tables. They will often be playing on fold up trestle tables, 6x2 trestle tables.
Absolutely.
And they're not the right height for gaming. Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
So yeah, honestly, like for me, I typically stand up during my game, but during the opponent's turn, I'm sitting down. I'll only stand up for rules. Sometimes if that, I'll just be like, just throw them on.
Get into the habit, because you don't really get overexcited. You stand off your first 2 games, and then you can't move on day 2. If it's
day 2, you wake up and you're like aches and pains. You're like, what have I done?
Very good tip.
A lot of people go out drinking as well on that night. And I don't understand how they do it. No. Like, I'm tired enough as it is on day 1. But yeah, really handy tip. The other one for me is get some really handy tools. I've got a few little ideas. I've got a little dice holder, goes a long way. Just make sure you keep your dice safe. Easy to read dice and wound dice.
This is really important.
Honestly, the amount of times where people have been like, roll dice, and there's just like, when there's like the 6 and a 1 is typically the ones where I've got like a unique thing. It's like, I don't know your dice, so if I see someone rolling and I'm seeing like some weird, icons and such, I'm gonna be like, I have no idea if you're picking up the right ones. So for me, just bring some easy to read dice, because you're going to be there and you're going to be rolling so much dice. You can't be bothered to keep picking the ones out. It's a waste of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some wound dice. It sucks.
Definitely need wound markers.
Yeah, if you roll your nice like custom dice that you've got for your own Necrons that I have, I don't want to put them as my wound ones, because I want them. That I always have them in blobs of 20.
Yeah.
So if I have like 18 wounds, 18 shots to do, I take out 2. If I start putting wounds, using them for wound markers, I'm wasting time, because I'm like, oh, okay, I've got 1 there and 1 there, so that's 18, right? I need to get 16 dice, right? And then, it's like,
it's also confusing for your opponent, because if you have a model on the table which has one of your, let's say the Necron dice, right? So I've got a Necron dice here next to my Scorpion Lord. It says he's got 4 wounds left. If I then roll some dice near those that are the same dice, you can get confused about which dice are which.
Absolutely.
You don't want to be picking that up and saying, oh, that's a hit on a 4. So
causes doubt.
I use. Bought some cheap little red dice.
Perfect
for wound mark. And you can buy little wound markers to point next to models and stuff. But you've got to
really nice.
There's the key is to make sure they're different dice to the ones that you roll.
Definitely. Next thing is a good tape measure. I found that's always good. You've got a solid one. Yours is overcompensating for something, but it's massive.
My normal tape measure broke, and I found one in the toolbox, which is like a proper workman's one. Like you could brain somebody with it. It weighs a ton.
It's got a little bubble there to make sure the table's all straight as well.
It's got a spirit level on it, belt clip. It's got the works.
The works, tea flask. Honestly, I love tea. So I always bring a tea flask. Stay hydrated. I think is a good one to see.
Yeah, I think drinking plenty of fluids and the right fluids. Don't just drink loads of tea and coffee or loads of cola. Make sure you get some water or something like that inside you, because you will.
Your joints will appreciate it. Your muscles will. Briefly mentioned this one before, but if you're attending your first tournament, bring a simple list. I know you might want to go in there and be like, oh, I really want to show myself off, and like I want to show people that I'm a really good player. Just enjoy. The main thing is about enjoying the day. And my first couple of tournaments that I went to, I learned this the hard way. I brought all warriors and like some really unique characters that I could bring in multiple things. And it was just too much to remember.
It's a lot of to try and
I just simply forgot some really basic rules, like the fallback one, my reanimation on some cases, just because I had so much other things to remember.
There's an enormous amount of extra mental load playing your first tournament, because you are learning an awful lot while still also trying to play 40k in a pressure environment. Something you can do is, if you like, depends on what faction you play, but playing custodies, for example, or knights, or you can take very few models, which makes life a lot easier. If you are playing another thing I did when I was learning Drukhari, when the Dark Eldar, was rule of 3. So it wasn't the most optimized list, but I'm right. I'm taking 3 units of Cabalite Warriors, 3 Ravagers, 3 units of Scourge, because that's going to be the core of my army.
Yeah.
And then I don't have that much to worry about because I know what each of those units do.
Yeah.
And it's just repetition.
Yeah.
And that
Absolutely.
makes, rather than having 15 different units, try and reduce how many different units you've got.
Absolutely.
And unless you feel super comfortable in your army and you've played loads of practice games with it, but generally speaking, the simpler the better.
Just keep it. Yeah. I mean, I absolutely love bringing my Imperial Knights just because, again,
they're a great tournament army.
But low model count. And if you bring in multiple models, they're all the same because they're all armigers.
Yeah.
So again, it's just nice and easy to keep it
easy.
simple. Next one, I was going to lastly mention for the tip side of things, something that we briefly mentioned at the start about, if you hear us talk about, we've got some really good players, some really good teams coming to a tournament, don't necessarily panic. Those guys have the knowledge, right? They're happy to share it.
Mm-hmm.
Go talk to them. The amount of times I've been to a tournament where I've seen icons at the top table, I just stroll up and I'm like, what's your list? Tell me. I'm here. I'm a sponge. Let me see what you're saying.
And even you will, round 1 is a random pairing, so you could get drawn against somebody that plays for an international team, and they will beat you severely. But if they are a nice person, they will talk you through what they're doing and why. Yeah. They'll also say sometimes, as a great one, I think, is, "Are you sure you want to do that? Because if you do that, I'll do this," or "Have you thought about doing that?" Yeah. And that is often much. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes they'll just beat you and go, right, they just want to get the game over so they can go back on go and have the cans or go and see their friends, and they're entitled to do that. Yeah. But generally speaking, every game I've played against a top player, they've taken the time to teach me something.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely heard of instances where people, again, as you say, they're just there to play on the top tables, so they see the first 1 or 2 rounds as just like, well, what's the point?
They're all business, and a lot of those top players are thinking about incremental gain. So if they're thinking, well, if I can beat this guy in an hour and a half, then I can have a rest. Yeah,
and get ready for the next game and such. Yeah. But again, that group of people, I honestly want to say, is maybe like 3% of the tournament.
It's actually not that many in a tournament. Yeah, you will find that there are an awful lot of people like you who are new to the tournament scene, or who are there for the more social aspects of it.
There's so many times that I guess I think every time I've been to, I've met someone at least new once at every single time. Great. Anything else from you?
No, I think that's it.
All the tips done? Yeah. What about how to deal with losses then?
I like to tip the table over.
Yeah, you've done that twice now, haven't you? Spilled tea or thrown tea at your opponent once?
No, that was the same game. The guy had a cup of tea, and the legs just collapsed, so the tea went everywhere, and the table and the minis
just
went everywhere.
Collapsed. Yeah. Was it Dan? Was it?
Yeah. It was one of those ones where the legs fold out, and one set of the legs just decided to fold in. He came around the table and leaned on them, and it wasn't his fault because the legs hadn't been like locked in. Yeah. So the legs just went, we'll fold in now. Yeah. The table went like that, everything fell off. So don't tip the table over. I think the main thing to think about is to understand is that Tournament 40k is a different game. It is its own game. It is so different to playing casual 40k. It is you are playing against players who have lists that are optimized and who understand how to score points and who also, in a lot of cases, are experienced at playing against your faction. So they know how to counter it, and all of that just comes with practice. Yeah, it absolutely does. I think you need to treat your first tournament and possibly first tournaments as a learning experience. It is very rare that somebody comes along who has sussed it out beforehand, understands how to do it, and does well at their first tournament. Yeah,
and I mean, even to mention that there's you might go in, right, and you might smash your first tournament and be like, oh, this is easy, I can do this, and then you go to your second tournament and just get absolutely wailed on.
But it depends on what we're talking about again. So like a tournament at your local gaming store, no disrespect to local gaming stores, but that is going to typically you don't score ITC points for those. So what I mean by that is that the top tournament players are vying against each other to finish like top of there is a season that
Yep.
lasts a specific set of months,
Yep.
and at the end, the player with the most points is the best player ever,
Yeah.
and you get best in faction as well. Those kind of things.
Exactly.
So they don't. If they will not tend to go to, and they shouldn't go to a local gaming stores tournament. A local gaming stores tournament is much more for the newer crowd.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a good way just
Yeah.
again just to learn there.
Yeah, it is. It's a great way, and that will be a lot. Some of those things that we've been talking about here might not apply in that environment. You'll probably be playing fewer games. You might be under less time pressure. The terrain might be set up for you already, etc., etc.
Exactly.
It's slightly different, but if you can go into that and win that, or do very well in it, and then go to a proper RTT or GT,
Yeah.
and that is a whole other level.
It's you immediately feel the difference
Yeah,
when you get there.
Oh yeah, you know about it.
Yeah. For me, honestly, it's just like the bottom tables where the most fun games are at.
Oh,
The
yeah.
amount of times where I've got to the bottom tables and there's like someone with like a Bane blade, and you're like, I know why you're here. You
Yeah,
came with
yeah.
one massive model
Yeah.
that you just wanted to play and have fun with.
Yeah.
And we've mentioned in other videos, the Bane blade are really hard to move around terrain. Alongside like there was a
Tyranid
Titan.
Bio Titan.
That's
yeah.
the one.
Yeah, the Hierophant. Yeah.
And he couldn't move it.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because like you get to these bomb tables and you see these really unique builds of lists and such. It's really good. It's
Yeah.
really nice to see. Again, you mentioned it briefly. You're going to learn absolutely so much as well.
You have to treat it as a learning experience. It has to be that mindset. It's not about, obviously you can set yourself a goal, and that depends on how confident you are. But, whether that's winning 1 game out of 3 or 2 out of 5 or whatever. But try and set yourself a goal. But also the main goal should be, can I come out of this absorbing as much as possible and be a better player than I went in?
Yeah.
Like I'm more knowledgeable, and I understand my faction better. I understand the game better.
Yeah.
And I understand my opponent's factions better.
Yeah.
And if you can tick all of those off, then I know it sounds cheesy, but you have won. That is you have developed as a player, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah. I think the last thing for me on this topic is literally just go in not expecting to win. Like, you're there to have fun. You're there to roll some dice. Just set yourself, if you're playing 3 games, set yourself a goal of winning 1.
Yeah,
like
I think so.
Going in there to
set
play
yourself
5
realistic
games.
goals. Yeah,
yeah. Just don't overestimate. You might play again. You might get this like false mentality of where you work playing in your little bubble of people, and you're like, "Oh, I'm the top dog in my bubble. I'm going to go out and sit." And then you go to a tournament and get smashed, and you're like, "Oh crap, our bubble's crap."
I know people have done that. That have been the top dog in their group and have been like, "I feel ready for a tournament now," and then they've gone to a tournament and
just get fucked on.
and been disappointed because their expectations were they were expecting to do quite well.
Yeah.
And so you've got to manage your own expectations within that.
Sometimes we're not actually touched on it, but sometimes it's not even your fault that you've lost. Like you might have the best list. You might have piloted this list several times, and the dice just absolutely don't want you to win. Or 2, the pairings that you get determine how well you do in a tournament.
Your pairings, you can get, even though we talked about the fact that the pairings are designed to try and balance it out as best it can, but you might just get unlucky. So,
Lists like that completely counter yours.
Last Northeast Open, I lost my first game, and I ended up playing a guy from Team Scotland who is an immeasurably better player than me. But he just happened to come up against a very good player in his first game and lost.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there was no way I was going to win game 2.
Yeah.
But you can't be salty about that. You're like, right, well, I'm going to talk to this guy and try and mine as much information from him about why are you doing that?
I love that question where you move something, you're like, why?
Yeah.
Not because I care, but why are you doing that? Because I want to know what your thought process is.
Don't say it aggressively like I just did. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing this to me?
You can't do that.
Yeah.
How dare you?
But,
Judge?
Yeah. But yeah. Oh, why are you doing that?
I like
but it's like the guy. I put some stuff in Deep Strike because he had some indirect fire, and he was putting his stuff. He's setting up around, deploying around the board and moving his stuff out. I'm like, why are you spreading out so much? He's like, well, then you can't deep strike. He said, if you measure, he says, I know, measure up now where you can deep strike. And he said, I can tell you now, it will be here in this spot because that's the only bit I've left you.
Yeah.
And I went, oh yeah.
And that's a kill zone.
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't want that.
But that kind of stuff is really useful. And then that can engender another question. Is like, all right then. Well, knowing you obviously knew you could do that, and I wasn't. I didn't plan for that. What would you have done differently for me in deployment? Would you have put less in deep strike, etc.? And then you have a bit more of a conversation. If they're a good player, they'll talk to you about these things.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Some really good stuff there, I think. Anything else before we move on?
Just try not to repeat mistakes. This can be quite frustrating, but learn from your mistakes. You will make them, but learn from them. Yeah.
Good shout. Very good shout. In terms of then how to get better, I know we've touched on a few things already, like some tips and whatnot, but anything extra that you want to add on those ones?
Just practice. I think get those reps in beforehand and in between tournaments. And I think it's important to try and find people on a similar skill level. Ideally, you want to find someone that's a slightly better player than you.
I was going to say that there. Yeah, I like playing against people who are better than me. No, it's just, again, you learn so much from that, or I do at least anyways.
But it's got to be incremental. Like, there's no point me playing somebody from Team UK because, like, Manny is just going to beat me every time. And there's a limit to how much. While we say you can learn from those games, there's a limit to how much you can learn.
That's fair.
The games you will learn more. 40k can be. Because it's a you go I go game, it can be quite uninteractive against a good player because they will shut down what you can do.
True,
and they do that without thinking because they have to.
Yeah,
that's how you play at a top level. Whereas if I'm playing somebody that's only slightly better than me, they will do a couple of things. And I'm like, oh, that was good.
Yeah,
but then I'm like, right, well, I'll do. I know
something similar.
Yeah, and you just feel like you have more opportunities to experience what your army can do against someone that's a little bit better than you than a lot better.
That's fair. Yeah. That is fair.
Because unless somebody a lot better is being incredibly sportsmanlike and pulling their punches, they will just go, I'm going to do this, and that's basically the game won.
That's very true. Yeah.
And you learn how to not do that again, but that's one thing you've learned rather than learning more about what your army does.
Yeah, that's very true. Something similar I was going to say at that one was play styles, particularly in tournaments. I think there's just such a variety out there because obviously each list comes with a different sort of play style.
Yeah.
Obviously we've got a few friends, and you're out there who have a monkey brain, is what we refer to it as, where in their head there was only point A and there was only point B.
Yeah.
They started point A and want to get to point B. You see this? I'm gonna call armies out. Orc players, world eaters. They are designed just to run at you and get in your face. That play style is what's called a monkey brain, is what we refer to it as. But then you've also got the big players, like the big brains, who are going for objectives, who might not necessarily have a killy list, but as you say, they've got those units to get in those positions to stop you from moving forward. They're raking up all the points.
Hold those primaries,
all the primaries,
primary,
exactly. So it's really interesting to get a variety of play styles in there before you go to a tournament. Only even if you're at a tournament, just make sure you're absorbing what sort of play styles you see.
Play as many different factions as you can.
Absolutely. And obviously, apart from that, playing tournaments, as you say, play more practice games in, and just chat to people whilst you're there. I know we've mentioned that.
Unless you are a genius, there's very few people that I know. There's only one person I know of who has kind of picked this up and become very good at it very, very quickly. Generally speaking, it is it's a learning curve, and you just have to enjoy that process.
You don't talk about this yourself, but you got really good really fast when you first came to our, because remember when you first came to our games, you played me.
I did, yeah.
It was a bit of a landslide.
1,000-point game, yes.
It was a bit of a landslide on my side.
Mind you, I've been told it was casual, so I brought like Ghost Ark and Warriors and that, and I was like, oh,
was it casual?
No, it wasn't casual. Came up against Jack's
I was here to get my ITC points in our little homebrew game.
But no, well, before I joined your circle of friends, I'd played only a handful of competitive games in my life, and most of those were in like the early 2000s. I generally preferred playing casual and narrative, and that's what I mean is like you can roll dice for years with your pals in a casual environment.
Oh yeah,
it's a different game.
It's completely
playing competitive.
It better, worse. Honestly, personally, it's personal preference, but
100%, mate.
It's not as bad as you think. But on the flip side, it might not be as good as you think.
I think that's one of the things is journey. It is a kind of journey of discovery, and so you'll go to tournaments. Sometimes you'll have a really bad experience. Try not to let that put you off. I would say get back on the horse and do it again, because these are those
finding the right one, isn't it?
But also, for some people, you will go to them. Like I was like, well, I'm going to try playing like this, and if I don't like it, I'll just go back to casual.
Yeah.
But I did like it. Yeah. And you, even though you're in a competitive environment, you can have a great vibe at the table.
When we go to these tournaments, we still have a very casual mentality around it. Like we're in it, and then we're just like meeting up with friends again, having a good old chat and talking about what we lost and such.
You meet people, and you can end up becoming friends with these people. I mean, there are games I've had with someone where there's been a little bit of an edge to it, where I'm like, this person, not that this person's done anything wrong, but this person has a much more competitive mindset than me, and that's not really where I'm at. So, but they're entitled to because they're at a tournament.
Exactly.
You know,
don't expect. Maybe that's another thing. Don't expect the world from your opponent, kind of thing. Like, they're there to have their game.
Yeah.
You go there to have your game.
Yeah.
And as daft as it sounds, don't make it so that you have to have your opponent involved in your game to have fun. Go there with your play style, what you want to do. Like Annihilation Legion, I mentioned so many times in this channel. I love it because I'm just there to destroy the opponent.
Yes, now, that's like Monkey Brain Necrons.
Absolutely, and I love it. I think it's great. I just want to chill vibe. I want to do certain units. I want to do certain things. If they do it, I've had a good game. Did I get smashed? Most likely. But it doesn't matter because I went in there wanting to do certain things.
Yes.
I've done them. I had fun. Seen it. Took the photo. I left.
And knowing your army, like you knowing Annihilation Legion inside out, is a better thing to take to a tournament than you trying to play Canoptech Court, which you never played.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Another thing as well, one of my favourite games and tournaments I've played at was when I brought all Catans.
God, yeah.
I just wanted to cause a stir. I was just like, you know what? I was like, it's new. Obviously, they hadn't removed it. It was like early in on
it was early in edition when the Hypercrypt, you could still Cosmic Precision there.
Yeah.
It was filthy.
It was just, but the thing is, I lost a couple of games. I think I only won like one game or something like that, because once you learn how to verse the Catans, it's like, oh, well, they can't really score points. Like,
the Upsal Catan list is a lot of fun, even though some of your opponents might see it across the table and be like,
the amount of
annoyed
looks
about
that
it.
I got.
But actually, it doesn't have very good board control. It's quite good at killing stuff, but it's not. You're not going to score loads of points.
They can absorb the damage, but if they can't get there, like I think one of the opponents had Blood Angels, he just rushed up, and stopped us from moving. And I was like,
put you in jail,
And I was like, this is fun because I came here just to try and see what I can do with the Catans, and not a lot in most of my games, but it was just fun, and I wanted to play this list because this list was going to have fun. I lost most of my games and I still had fun. That's the takeaway. Go there with a list that you enjoy, have fun. If you win, thumbs up, amazing. If you lose, thumbs up, amazing.
I mean, final thoughts from me would be that if tournaments aren't for you after all of this, that's okay. And I don't need to sound patronising there, but don't put too much pressure on yourself. And there are lots, if you like the social side of that, there are still loads of other events. There's those casual tournaments we talked about, but there is a growing narrative community out there as well. So our local club, the Wildings, is running a narrative league, for example, where the points are going to be awarded not by winning your games, but it's going to be about who tells the best stories with their army. The proper meaning of narrative, really. But you will find narrative events like Apocalypticon.
That's about to say the same one there, run by Scott.
Yes.
So again, in the UK, does it every year. Check that out. It's on Facebook and such. But again, stuff like that. If the tournament isn't your scene, the narrative is a completely different scene, which again is really, really good.
Yes. So there's a lot of options out there where you can still enjoy the social aspects without the competitive edge. But we would deeply recommend that you do give tournaments a try. It's a great way to learn the game. It's a great way to get out there and meet new people. And for me personally, it's the best way to develop as a player. Yeah.
Again, we briefly mentioned it already as well, so I'll keep it brief. But just join some clubs. Find your local club. Facebook, Discords. I think that's the best ways of probably finding them. Word of mouth after that is really, really good. And just with the more games, I just like seeing people play Warhammer. That's the main thing. Just have some fun, get some games in.
I mean, we're going to one at the end of this. We're recording this in beginning of Feb or near the beginning of Feb. We're going to one in a couple of weeks, like a one day event, which should be good fun. And then we'll see what the rest of the year brings in terms of. We'll probably do the Northeast Open. I would like to do that.
Yeah, I don't see why not. It's a good little day as well. Or good weekend, should we say. I would love to do more doubles tournaments. We've done them in the past. We won gold, I think. It was that one over there.
I think we came second. We came second at the doubles.
I'm trying to impress I'm trying to impress everyone.
No, I can't, because I think Alex, who was part of the team, the doubles that won it, is in our Discord, so I can't.
Damn it, we can't get away
Alexander,
with it. No. We'll have to ban him, Dan. Joking, of course. But honestly,
let us know your experiences if you've been to tournaments, or if there's anything that you think we've missed in terms of things that people need to know. Let us know if you brought new people the tournaments and how they found it.
Yeah.
And also, if you're going to any tournaments in the northeast of England, let us know as well, because maybe we'll pop along.
Absolutely. I think that's it. A couple of little thanks I think we have to give out.
Yes.
First of all, Patreons. We've just started that over the last week, and I'll pop your names on screen because you guys have been amazing. Thank you so much for your support.
Yeah.
It goes a long way. Oh, it really does.
Yeah, really, really appreciate that. We started it because people were asking, and some of you have already signed up, and same on YouTube membership as well.
That's
so really, thank you. We are saving up. Sound like it's pocket money, but we're saving up for a new camera, aren't we?
Yeah. Camera, lights, more comfy chairs.
Yes.
Oh my god,
yeah.
This chair.
So there's a few things we want to do to try and improve the videos. So all of that money is going to go towards that. Thank you.
Massive thanks. And I think that's it then, right?
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll be back soon with another video. Thank you.
Thank you.